Here are a few more use cases. I'll skip through this slide. You may have seen this. We primarily focus on this piece here, how we make this customer support. Because in the enterprise environment, if you see, basically 80% of the thing is process optimizations. So if today something is taking 10 days to fulfill, how can I bring it to 8 days? How can I bring it to 5 days using whatever solutions is available in the market? The next best is these conversational agents, chatbots. I think we have a great success there in some scenarios, like we have a HR management solutions, and where the chatbot has these conversation trees for most 20 frequently asked questions, and that is helping and deflecting more than 40% of the requests that used to be handled by a real person earlier. So huge ROI, quick wins, already tested in many different areas. And similarly, in the first level support, if you have any bank site you go today, you'll say I have Alexa or whatever, the name, how can I help you? So that basically, these are the solutions where it's basic. They have been validated, and many companies are able to show the ROI. So if you go to ServiceNow.com, you can see some of the case studies and ROI we have from our virtual agent solution. Okay, so let's look at I'm just putting my PM hat here, and I'll give you a perspective. What are the challenges that I ran into? So this is just a generic, right? What do you need for AI? You need to have the computing power. You need a lot of data, algorithms, generic stuff. Data science team. You need funding. If you're a startup, it's even hard to pivot things around. But luckily, ServiceNow, we acquired few small companies in this space, and we build up this capability or the talent within the ServiceNow, so we are able to bring or build solutions using those teams. And the most important is the last point here, like the real problem that is worth solving, because if you're not able to identify the real pain point, not just by talking to one or two customers, when it comes to the enterprise space, you have to really go broad, not just if one big customer is asking for X and you start building it, then you realize that, hey, did I consider the scenario of my MSPs, who have a different implementation, they have a customer, another layer of customers, so on and so forth. So another, I think this may have, you have seen there's risks around AI. So first is it a hype? So I believe it's not. So we basically demystifying, over time we have been demystifying by showing success around these virtual chatbots, success around some of the use cases like classification, and where you have the the labeled data, and you can apply supervised learning to a great success. Data, I think getting the data, and there's a lot of companies who are working hard on making it possible how you can make this data more of a commodity and get the data. So you basically avoid this cold start problem in some industry verticals. The talent, the trust, I think trust is getting big. AI is a black box, how you can explain it. So that's the one part. The second part is the solution is the blockchain set of technologies that will help in some of the trust areas. And then the people, the GDPR rules, and here what it will do to the employment, autonomous war robots. So yeah, it's interesting to sometimes see people's view in this and get into when I read an article, the most fun part is when you go into the comments area, so people have been there. Okay, so what kind of issues, if you are already a product manager, or if you're trying to move into the product management, and let's say if you're moving into an area where your team is trying to build AI-driven products, so you really have to, basically there is a learning curve that you have to jump on, because in a typical product management, once you identify the problem, you work with the engineering team, you go into this 2-week sprint cycle and then try to get something out of the door as soon as possible. But with the AI, things change because you cannot build something in a week. You need to, and I have a slide coming up for our AI Agile framework that basically how we combat some of the challenges. And then there's a lot of things around like how you will test. So when we built our chatbot, and our QE team came up with, hey, these are the 50 test cases, we will send this command, this command, this command. No, I mean, how you can, all the possible questions that can be asked around that particular conversation path that you have. So it's telling you, what is the bug, what is error, what is it, a model issue, is it a data issue? So, and this is where, there's some of the issue that I ran into when we were basically at the same time building the team, taking a few things from the open source. So the main kind of the learning or how you can cross that thing and become a strategic AI PM. So let's go through some of the base pieces. So whether you're PM or AI PM, I think that there are some core skills needed. You need to know how to talk to customer. You need to know how to, or are curious about building the product. Depending on the domain, you need to have the domain expertise as well. And then few minimal required knowledge around this AI space. And this is subjective because you don't have to have these to begin with, but depending on the product, what kind of product you're building. So if you're building, let's say in my case, my transition was like step-by-step transition. It's not that, I'd say I'll go ahead and, take the data science team and build new algorithms. No, the first job I did was, we already have these matured applications, and then we look at what solutions we have. So we have solutions around classification, clustering, and similarity. How can I apply those solutions into my workflow, the slide that I was showing earlier. So this is basically the important point, going back to your question here. The critical job here is you have a problem. On one side, you should be able to identify, as a company, where do you want to go. As a PM, one of the KPI that I always keep in mind is how you can basically build use cases or solve a problem that can give you a sustainable growth over time. There are many other KPIs, in the SaaS world, is retention rate, but I think the most important KPI for me is I want to solve real problem that customers are happy to pay additional price, or at least keep doing the renewals. And then you come to what are the solution available? The solutions could be, doesn't have to be an AI solution. It could be, it can be solved with a simple, the workflow or a simple business rule. And then you see where are the gaps and how you can fill it. So let's kind of do a deep dive here. First, it's important to know where you are on our AI timeline. In our case, when I jumped onto this product, we were here. We have these easy to create drag and drop based conditions. You can create your workflow. If ticket came into this one, if you resolved it, it will go to different groups. Very flexible. And now this is where we are right now. So how we can, on those critical moments, so we are not trying to automate everything in a process because our technology is not there yet. But what we are doing is we are picking up those critical moments which has the highest ROI, and then trying to apply those. So we have big success around the correctly assigning incidents to other people, whatever kind of case it is, a HR case, or finding the knowledge gaps. So where you have your, I talked about the knowledge base, community, Wikipedia, and then whatever, and then you have a set of, let's say, your incident backlog that has to be resolved. Where are the knowledge gaps? Do we have the right skills in the team, and do we have the right documentation in place? So, and then I think someday, when I say someday, next 5 to 10 years, I think we are more leaning towards higher in the chain, where machine and other capabilities will make our life more easier, so that we can make faster decisions, or machine can make decisions by itself. This is the framework I borrowed for my team. So if you see there are the multiple steps, but if I group them, as the first one is we call it design sprint. Is popularized by Google. So they in a 5-day time frame, they try to do a rapid research and use user empathy diagram, and at the same time what kind of solutions you can have. So this is one bucket, and then you go into let's do the rapid experimentation just to see the viability of the solution, right? Whether the solution is viable or not, can we go ahead and kind of build it or not? So this we try to do. It used to take 2 weeks, but in some of the cases where we have the models available and where we want to leverage the model in some of the existing applications, so we are able to finish that in 1 week, and then you basically go into the rest of the cycle where you work on building and releasing the system. Okay, so now the question comes is, okay, I have the framework, I understand the role of PM. What are some of the other things that I should think as a product manager, or as a, if you are in a product or engineering organization, I think this applies to everybody. Think about the ML design early on, because, and the reason this is important is because when I'm building new application, it's relatively easier for me to, in the initial architecture, think of, hey, can I apply AI here, versus a old application that we launched 6 years ago. Of course we have the data, but the data is not useful, because to collect the right data you have to do the instrumentation, which otherwise just getting the usage is, you can do very minimal things. You cannot make decisions on that, and then doing those extra basically hooks to get the useful data point, it takes time. And then the next is, what do you want to optimize? Do you want to reduce the number of steps? Or do you want to, what you are optimizing for? Are you optimizing for, let's say, a recall, or more precision? So that's, I think you have to basically go into these different questions early on, so that you can have the discussion around it with your team. Of course, the data you need, user experience is given. I mean, you may see this everywhere, because everybody, particularly at ServiceNow, our main theme recently is how we can provide a consumer-like user experience for the enterprise customers. You have to have the feedback, we saw it earlier, and then you should be able to measure the success. Have a KPI-based mindset. The way that we do it is, we provide a flow, so you can attach a KPI, so you can track, okay, this is where am I. If I'm looking at, let's say, customer satisfaction trend, and this is where am I today, this is where I want to go, kind of setting your target in here, and how you can track throughout the life cycle and make readjustment. If you don't have that, and if you're just waiting for, okay, I'm building this and then I'll check it, very obvious and intuitive thing, but we do forget about when we are like in the pressure of building things quickly and all that, and then okay, we build it, released it, and then you don't have the inputs of how well is it doing, how you can show the value in the end. So having that value-driven mindset, the outcome achieved from whatever solutions you are releasing is very important. Otherwise, if I'm an executive, that's the first question I'll ask.
So what are the top 3 value metrics that you go for? Could be cost, performance, availability, what kind of?
Yeah, so I'll give it based on, we did a survey actually, about one of the questions was this. So the feedback from most CIOs is they focus, the first thing is customer experience, like the CSAT score, and depending on your product, it could be your internal customers, employees, or it could be external customers. And then the second is basically the productivity or reducing the cost. How you can make your people more productive, and because that helps in reducing the cost. And it also depends on, as a company, where you are. Do you have enough cash in the pocket so that you can focus on the first goal and come to the second of reducing the cost later on? So basically, these are the third one is how you can stay competitive and innovative in your space. Because if you, and there the approach that we take is hey, we are taking this step-by-step approach, giving you these solutions for different in process cycle, so that you can reach to the goal. And instead of trying to boil the ocean, let's see what problem has been can potentially be solved in a more trackable where you can show the value. And the last one is the failback. Because, and here, the one use case I really like is, so in the phone, right, I have an iPhone and you get the voicemail, and it automatically give you a transcript. And if you notice, it says, the data. And if you hear, so basically, I think that's a really good use case. You should also have into your product. It's something, make it visual, because Apple is telling me, hey, I'm giving you this transcript, but don't take it to heart if something is not transcribed well. And if you have some feedback, you have the button right here so that I can improve it next time. So what is your feedback? If you have, let's say, the example here is, if you have the vision or face recognition, what happens if it doesn't work? Do you have a feedback or not? It's very important. I'll quickly skim through these slides here. There's some additional questions that we should, and this question list I gave it to the new PM that joining my organization says, and this is the, I think they gave me the feedback, and I gave them like 20 questions, or like 30 of them, and then they gave me, these were helpful, and so this is kind of a shorted list. It's not prioritized, it's just a list here. Again, identifying the use case, and this is, may seem simple that, I know use case, this is freaking hard, very, very hard. And when I say hard is, and I'm happy to talk about, offline after the session, and I can dive into more detail, is that you may say, okay, we'll solve this, but when you look at, thousands of customers, is it solving their pain point or not? Because people have different interpretation of the success, different rules, the country rules, and so on and so forth. So how you can factor in those variables to define your success in a more generic way. What level of AI you need, how much of your app will do versus, so basically how many questions or how many clicks you want your users to do. And this directly feeds into your user experience. If you're asking like 30 questions to begin with, and then you're applying AI, it's I think you will face a lot of friction. So see how many things you can detect automatically by going through all your system where you have the data points and kind of bring in the models. So these slides will be available, so let me skim through this. Few more questions here. What basically, so we talked about what happens if AI fail, what additional data you want to save, or when the feedback comes in, and this last point is, this not just a point, but I think this is a big decision. That should we build it, outsource it, should we open source, and it goes back to that in topic itself when it comes to acquiring a talent and building products around AI. Okay. So again, this is my list of 7 bullet points that I think if any product manager who is trying to build AI products should focus on. So in our case, what was happening is like 2 years ago, we had a platform group who initially built the data science team, and I'm in the application side, right? So we were kind of not directly involved, so how you can fill those gaps, how you can be, directly or indirectly get involved in some of those, because you know that those things are going to be used in your product lines, or you will get impacted, and so how you can kind of skim through and break those silos as much as possible. And then some of these things are kind of repeating in a summary here. So rapid experimentation. Without this, I think you will fall back. So you have to figure it out. It took us 6 months. We tried a few different things. We started with 4-week cycle. Teams was coming on. We have new people joining in. How you can make it more of as a quick learning experiments and get better and better at it, and have how you will test things. So define your epics and story in such a way so that there is no ambiguity within the team. Whether it's my QE person, whether it's my the team, half of the team working remote, or the people. So you can make this basically information flow as quickly as possible. Another thing is how you can monetize the AI. So these the next 2 slides are basically, so this is where how it is being monetized. Mainly, we have our own use cases. I talked earlier, but mainly around we have the supervised learning, few use cases. There's around this one, the image recognition, and there's interesting use cases being solved for the finance and the security space. Get through the hype, focus on the practical use cases. This is, I'm bringing it maybe 3rd or 4th time here, but the reason is it's very important. And as a product manager, how you can stay up to date. There is few resources here that reports, not know if you have access. Otherwise, this McKinsey and GI reports. This is a great framework that I use. So if, let's say, if you go to your team today and you'll say, hey, give me your ideas for where we can apply the AI, I'm sure you can build up a list of more than 100 ideas in a day. But then how you can prioritize them, how you can combine them, and so this framework is very, if you can say, so basically what is, if you bucket them into which use cases belongs to the, where you want to automate or where you want to predict or you want to classify. Then there are many other areas as well, but these are the main 3 where the AI is providing higher success. Avoid reinventing the wheel. Try to use, I think a platform like this is a great way to learn things. I learned a lot, although I couldn't attend all these sessions I wished for. And then take this learning, go back and see how it can apply to your job and to your company. The article I read a couple of days ago. We have the big giants player, the IBM, Microsoft, Google, and I think this is an interesting read and see what they're doing. Who is going to win this race, right? And we have the the players like ServiceNow who are trying to solve the problem for there. We are not trying to build a general AI solutions. And read about, I'd say, that if you take out 10 minutes and read and then see, and I think the obvious conclusion here is looking at just the bullet points. Maybe Google is ahead, but you never know because this space is, everybody's investing so heavily.
Where was this article?
Medium? Yeah, so if you search Medium, Google monetize. So this was my last slide. So I have this link, you can download this deck. I have a lot of backup slide as well, but just to fit whatever I can in this 40 minutes time. And let's come to the questions.
Yeah. Let me see how much time
One
we
slide
have.
back. Yeah.
Okay, we have only 1 minute left.
Any comment on productization of AI solution? Because this is not a typical solution. It is so data-driven, data sources driven. How easy is it to really make it a product which can be replicated from organization to organization? Any comments on that?
Yeah, so the way we are able to do it is, or the one thing which is working in our favor is we have these early design partners and an early adopter or customer who are willing to share the additional data, so that we can train our models during our QE cycle and have them more confident to say what is the, let's say when we talk about this, going back to this incident example, that when we are categorizing it to assigning it to the person, what is the accuracy level? If it's just 50% accurate, it's not good enough because then it's creating even more problem, right? So you have to reach to a minimal acceptable where people say this is the same as a real person will do in most scenarios. So that really helped us in doing this kind of going to this alpha beta approach of the launch. And you have those learnings, have those success stories, and then before you go into the basically main release. But I know it's basically it's hard, and I think as a community or as a technologist we are learning it because it's varies so much from use case to use case, and particularly hard if you're building a kind of a general AI solutions for others versus like in ServiceNow we are just using it without applications. So what we can build a small use case with every release and can have this iterative approach. So it's I would say a little easier for us, but I think it's a hard problem.
Thank you a lot, Manjeet. Then we are just out of time.
Okay.
And it was a very clear, lucid talk, talking about making everything very simple, clear. Good job, very good job.
Thank you. Thanks for-
And keep in mind we have a